everybody else. So there was just kind of firm belief that I was walking this path and I had a purpose and didn't know exactly where I was going to end up or what exactly that might have been.
Anything that's going to compromise my peace and happiness.
Period.
So I think just taking control, making sure you like maintain your power, don't give your power away to anybody. That I feel like is the key to like truly being.
The moment the envelope opened, everything cracked. Because what should have been a celebration, what should have been a historic, career-defining victory for Michael B. Jordan, turned into something nobody saw coming. Something darker, something personal, something explosive. The cameras caught the applause, the standing ovation, the golden statue held high like a symbol of everything he had fought for. But what the cameras didn't catch was the ripple effect. Because miles away, behind closed doors, that same moment allegedly triggered a chain reaction inside the Harvey household that insiders are now calling a complete emotional breakdown. We're talking about Lori Harvey and her own mother, Marjorie Harvey, suddenly at odds in a way no one expected. And the reason? Regret, pressure, and a truth that might have been buried until that Oscar win dragged it back into the light. Because sources are whispering something shocking. That Lori didn't just watch that moment. She felt it. Hard. Like a wave she couldn't escape. And allegedly, she didn't celebrate. She spiraled. But here's where it gets even more intense. Insiders claim Marjorie wasn't comforting her. She was confronting her, challenging her decisions, questioning her choices. And what started as a conversation turned into something far more explosive. Voices raised, old wounds reopened, blame being thrown in directions nobody saw coming. Because now the question isn't just about Michael's win. It's about what was lost and who's responsible for it. Was Lori pushed? Was she influenced? Or did she make a decision she's now being forced to face? In the most public, how painful way possible. And if that wasn't enough, there are rumors, leaked messages, alleged late-night calls that were never answered, and a silence from Michael that might be saying more than words ever could. This isn't just celebrity gossip anymore. This is fallout, family tension, emotional chaos, and a story that's only getting messier by the second. Because if what insiders are hinting at is true, that Oscar didn't just crown a winner, it exposed everything. And what happens next might tear this family apart. The moment the applause faded, the real story began. Because while the world celebrated Michael B. Jordan standing at the top of his career, holding that Oscar like a symbol of victory, inside another room, far from the cameras, something completely different was unfolding. Something heavy, something emotional, and something explosive. According to insiders, Lori Harvey wasn't clapping, she wasn't smiling, she wasn't celebrating, she was frozen. Sources claim the moment his name was announced, something shifted in her expression, subtle but undeniable. The kind of reaction you only notice if you're looking closely. A pause, a breath, a flicker of something that didn't match the celebration happening around her. And then, she got quiet. Not just quiet, withdrawn. Because according to someone who was allegedly present that night, Lori didn't stay in the room long. She excused herself early, phone in hand, disappearing into another space while everyone else remained glued to the screen. That's where the first alleged move happened, the call. Insiders claim Lori attempted to reach out to Michael that same night. Not publicly, not for attention. Quietly. Privately. A congratulatory call that, on the surface, sounds simple, harmless even. But nothing about this situation is simple. Because that call allegedly went unanswered. And not just once. Multiple attempts. No response. No callback. No acknowledgement. Just silence. And that silence hit harder than anything else. Because according to sources, Lori wasn't expecting that. Not after everything. Not after the history. Not after the time they shared when things were serious, when people believed they were heading somewhere real. She thought there was still something, even if it was just respect, closure, a moment, but instead, nothing. And that's when the emotional shift reportedly began. She looked shaken, one insider claimed, Not dramatic, not loud, just off. Ooh, like something inside her dropped. And that's when Marjorie Harvey stepped in. But not the way people expected, because instead of comfort came confrontation. At first, it was subtle. Questions. What did you expect? Why now? Why reach out after all this time? And those questions, they weren't soft, they weren't gentle, they were sharp, direct. And according to insiders, Lori wasn't ready for that. Because in her mind, this wasn't about reopening anything. It was just a gesture, a moment of acknowledgement. But Marjorie allegedly saw it differently, completely differently. You made your choice, she reportedly said. And just like that, the tone changed. Because now, this wasn't about Michael anymore. It was about decisions, about timing, about consequences. The conversation escalated quickly, voices rising, tension thickening. Because what started as a discussion about a missed call turned into something deeper, something that had clearly been sitting beneath the surface for a long time. According to sources, Marjorie began questioning everything, not just the call, but the breakup, the timing, the decisions Lori made when she walked away from Michael in the first place. You had something real, she allegedly said, and you let it go. That line, it hit hard, because for the first time, insiders say Lori didn't push back immediately. She didn't defend herself. She didn't argue. She paused. And that pause spoke volumes, because now the emotion shifted from frustration to something heavier, regret. And that's when things got even more intense. Because according to multiple sources, Lori's response wasn't loud, but it was loaded. "Oh, you told me I wasn't ready." Silence. That sentence hung in the air like a shockwave, because now the narrative flipped. Completely. Was she influenced? Was she guided? Was she pushed to make a decision she might not have fully owned? And if so, who's responsible? Marjorie reportedly didn't back down. Insiders claim she denied it immediately, saying Lori made her own choices, that no one forced her to walk away, that she had control over her own life and her own decisions. But by then, the damage was done, because now the conversation wasn't just emotional, it was personal, deeply personal. Old conversations resurfaced, past advice, private discussions that were never meant to be questioned, now being pulled into the light. You always had something to say about him, Lori allegedly pushed back. Oh, and you didn't listen, Marjorie responded. And just like that, it exploded. The argument reportedly escalated into a full-blown confrontation. Voices raised higher, emotions spilling over, the kind of moment where everything that's been held in finally comes out all at once. Because this wasn't just about Michael's win. It was about what that win represented. What could have been. What might have been. And what was lost. And then, it got worse. Because according to insiders, something was said in that moment that changed everything. Something so sharp, so direct, that it reportedly left the room completely silent afterward. You don't get to blame me for something you walked away from. That was it. No yelling, no screaming, just a statement. And according to sources, Lori didn't respond immediately. She just stood there, processing. And then she walked away. No dramatic exit, no slammed doors, just distance. And that silence was louder than anything that had been said. But here's where the story takes another turn. Because while all of this was happening behind closed doors, outside, the internet was already starting to notice something wasn't right. Subtle changes, missing posts, unusual silence, and within hours. The speculation began, because people weren't just celebrating Michael anymore. They were watching Lori, watching Marjorie, waiting, because something felt off. And when the internet senses tension, it doesn't stay quiet for long, because what happened next didn't stay private. It went public. And once it did, there was no controlling it. The moment it hit social media, there was no going back. Because what started as a private confrontation between Lori Harvey and Marjorie Harvey didn't stay behind closed doors for long. Not in a world where every move is watched, every silence is analysed, and every shift gets turned into a headline within minutes. And the first crack? It wasn't a statement, it was a post. Marjorie went first, a simple polished Instagram story. Nothing too obvious, nothing too direct. But the message? Loud enough to shake the internet. Timing reveals everything. That was it. No names, no tags. But people immediately felt it. Because the timing was way too perfect. And just like that, fans started connecting dots. Is this about Lori? Why would she post that now? Something definitely went down. Within minutes, screenshots were everywhere. Blogs picked it up. The TikTok creators started breaking it down frame by frame like it was a coded message. Twitter exploded with theories, timelines, and speculation that spread faster than anyone could control. And then, Lori responded, but not directly, not with words, with energy. She posted a photo, flawless, composed, unbothered on the surface. But the caption? Protect your peace, even from people who claim they love you. That line? It didn't just land, it detonated. Because now the tension wasn't just rumoured. It was visible, public, undeniable. And suddenly, this wasn't about Michael anymore. This was mother versus daughter. And the internet took sides immediately. Hashtag Team Lori started trending, with fans defending her independence, her right to make her own decisions, her space to grow without being judged, even by family. But hashtag Team Marjorie came just as fast. People arguing that a mother sees things differently. That experience matters. That sometimes the truth hurts, especially when it comes from someone who watched everything unfold from the beginning. And then, the leak started. Because in moments like this, there's always someone watching, someone listening, someone talking. A supposed insider dropped what they claimed was a transcript of a heated exchange between Lori and Marjorie from that night. Unverified, yes, but detailed enough to feel real. "You told me he wasn't the one," Lori allegedly said. "I told you to think carefully," Marjorie replied. "You didn't support it. I didn't control it." That back and forth, it spread like wildfire, because now the narrative had layers. It wasn't just regret, it was influence. And influence? That's where things get messy. Because if Marjorie had a role in shaping Lori's decisions, even indirectly, then this wasn't just Lori's story. It was both of theirs. And suddenly, people started revisiting everything. Old interviews, past comments, moments where Marjorie spoke about relationships, standards, timing. Clips resurfaced where Lori talked about knowing her worth, not settling, walking away when something doesn't feel right. At the time, it sounded empowering. Now, it sounded different, because now people were asking, was that her voice? Or was that guidance? And then came the second wave of chaos, because someone leaked what they claimed were messages. Private, emotional, raw, again, unverified, but enough to keep the fire burning. In one alleged message, Lori reportedly wrote to a friend, "I thought I was making the right choice, but now I don't know." That one line, it hit harder than anything else, because it didn't sound confident, it didn't sound certain, it sounded human and vulnerable. And suddenly the internet softened, just a little. Because behind the glamour, the headlines, the narrative, there was a person, a decision, and consequences that couldn't be undone. Meanwhile, Marjorie wasn't staying silent either. According to insiders, she was frustrated, not just at the situation, but at how it was being portrayed. She feels like she's being blamed for something she didn't do, one source claimed, like she's being painted as the villain in a story that isn't hers. And that frustration started to show. Subtle posts, likes on certain comments, silence on others. All of it being tracked, analysed, dissected in real time, because at this point, every move mattered. And then, the tension spilled into real life again. According to insiders, there was another confrontation. Not loud this time, not explosive, but colder, sharper. The kind of conversation where the words are quieter but cut deeper. "You can't rewrite the past," Marjorie allegedly said. "I'm not trying to," Laurie responded. "I'm just trying to understand it." That line, it revealed everything. Because this wasn't about blame anymore. It was about clarity. And clarity can be painful, because the more Laurie looked back, the more questions she had about timing, about influence, about whether things could have been different if certain voices weren't as loud or as present. And Marjorie? She wasn't backing down, because from her perspective, she was protecting her daughter, guiding her, helping her avoid something she believed wasn't right at the time. But now, with Michael at the top of the world, with that Oscar shining, with his silence louder than ever, everything felt different. And that's what made it so complicated, because timing changes everything. And what didn't look right then might look perfect now. But by then, it's gone. And that's where the real tension sits, not in what happened, but in what can't be undone. Meanwhile, outside the family, the chaos kept growing. Celebrities started reacting, subtly, carefully, but noticeably. One actress posted, "Never let anyone else make decisions your heart has to live with." Another celebrity liked a tweet that read, "Mothers mean well, but sometimes they don't have to live with the consequences." And just like that, the fire spread even further. Because now this wasn't just a family issue, it was a conversation about influence, about independence, about who really owns a decision when multiple voices are involved. And at the center of it all, Laurie, caught between past and present, between choice and consequence, between what she did and what she might be feeling now. But here's the part nobody saw coming, because while all of this was unfolding, while the internet was choosing sides, while the tension between Laurie and Marjorie kept building, there was one person who still hadn't said a single word. Michael B. Jordan. No response, no acknowledgement, no reaction, just silence. And that silence was about to become the loudest part of this entire story. Because what he does next might not just affect them, it might expose everything. And just when the silence from Michael B. Jordan felt like it couldn't get any louder, it shattered. Not with an interview, not with a statement, but with something far more calculated. A moment, a clip, a single appearance that flipped the entire narrative upside down. Because insiders revealed that Michael had attended a private industry event. No press, no red carpet, just a room full of power players. And what happened inside that room didn't stay private for long. Someone recorded it. And when that clip leaked, everything changed. In the footage, Michael is seen standing calm, composed, surrounded by executives and A-list names. Someone off camera brings up relationships, casually or almost jokingly, and then it happens. He smiles, pauses, and says, "Sometimes the biggest blessings come from what didn't work out." That line, it didn't just land, it detonated across the internet, because now, for the first time, it felt like he was speaking, without naming names, without pointing fingers, but making something very clear. He had moved on. Completely. Irreversibly. And within seconds of that clip hitting social media, the reaction was instant and brutal. Yeah. He's done. That wasn't shade. That was closure. Laurie and Marjorie just got their answer. But the real impact wasn't on the internet. It was inside the Harvey circle, because according to insiders, that clip hit like a shockwave, especially for Laurie Harvey. Sources say she watched it more than once. Not because she didn't understand it, but because she did. Every word, every pause, every implication. "That was for me," she allegedly said quietly to someone close to her. And in that moment, whatever uncertainty she had left collapsed. Because this wasn't silence anymore. This was finality. And if that wasn't enough, what happened next pushed everything over the edge, because just hours after that clip went viral, a second leak surfaced. And this one was far more personal. A supposed voice memo, again unverified but chillingly detailed, began circulating through blogs and private groups before exploding onto public platforms. In it, a woman believed to be Laurie is heard saying, "I didn't think it would end like this. I thought there'd be a conversation at least." That single sentence, it changed everything. Because for the first time, the narrative shifted from power and control to regret. Raw, quiet, undeniable regret. And the internet felt it. Even the critics paused. Because suddenly, this wasn't about who won or lost. It was about timing and missed chances. Meanwhile, Marjorie Harvey was reportedly dealing with her own storm behind the scenes. Because while Laurie was processing Michael's response, Marjorie was processing something else entirely. Blame. According to insiders, conversations inside the family became even more tense after that clip. Because now the unspoken question was impossible to ignore. If things had been different back then, would this moment exist now? And during one private exchange described as quiet but devastating, that question finally surfaced. "You told me to walk away," Laurie allegedly said. "I told you to choose yourself," Marjorie responded. "I did. And now look." That silence after was heavier than anything that had come before, because there was no clear villain, no clear answer, just consequences and two people trying to understand how they got there. But the chaos didn't stop inside the family. Outside, it reached a boiling point because social media had fully turned this into a spectacle. Fan edits comparing then versus now, clips of Michael and Laurie during happier moments, old interviews replayed with new meaning. Even celebrities began weighing in more openly. One high-profile figure tweeted, "Sometimes advice sounds like wisdom until you realize you have to live with the outcome." Another posted, "You can't outsource your heart decisions and expect peace." And just like that, the narrative exploded into something bigger than just them. It became a conversation about influence, independence, and the cost of listening to voices that might not fully understand your path. But here's where everything took its darkest turn. Because just when it seemed like the story had reached its peak, a final piece of information surfaced. And this one didn't feel like gossip. It felt real. According to multiple insiders, there had been an attempt, quiet, private, intentional, to reach out to Michael again after the clip went viral. Not publicly, not through social media, but directly. And the response was colder than anyone expected. No reply, no acknowledgement, nothing. Complete silence. Again. And this time it hit differently. Because it wasn't about timing anymore. It wasn't about misunderstanding. It was about closure. And that closure didn't include them. When Laurie realized that sources say something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but internally. She stopped asking questions, one insider revealed. She just accepted it. And sometimes that acceptance is louder than any breakdown. Meanwhile, Marjorie reportedly stepped back. Less posting, less engagement, less visibility. Not because she didn't have something to say, but because for the first time, there was nothing that could fix it. Because no advice, no guidance, no perspective could undo what had already played out. And that's the part nobody talks about. The part where the noise fades, the headlines slow down, and all that's left is reality. Because while the world moves on to the next story, for them, this one doesn't just disappear, it lingers. In conversations that don't happen. In moments that feel different, in a silence that says more than words ever could. And as for Michael, he keeps moving, unbothered, focused, untouched by the storm that continues behind him. Because sometimes the most powerful move is walking away and never looking back. And now, with everything exposed, everything analysed, everything felt, one question still hangs in the air, unanswered, unresolved, unavoidable. If time could rewind, would anything change? Or was this always how it was meant to end? Because if this story has proven anything, it's that not all losses feel like losses in the moment. But later, they echo. And this one is still echoing. And now you've seen it all unfold. The silence, the shade, the leaks, the tension, the moments that changed everything. And if you're still here, oh, then you already know. This story is far from over, because in situations like this, the real truth never drops all at once. It comes in layers. One clip, one message, one reaction at a time. And every single piece we just walked through, that's only what made it to the surface. So now I need you to do something. Don't just watch this story. Be part of it. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Who do you believe? Was this all a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control? Or was this a calculated series of moves that finally backfired? Do you think there's any chance of reconciliation? Or is this chapter permanently closed? And don't hold back, I want your real opinion. If you felt even one moment of shock, if any part of this had you questioning everything you thought you knew, then hit that like button, because trust me, what's coming next might be even bigger. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because the second another leak drops, another video surfaces, or someone finally breaks their silence, you'll hear it here first. Because missing the next update on this, that's not just missing tea, that's missing the moment everything changes.